What's going on, my PT peeps, Walking Dead family and my fighters? I'm One Eyebrow, also known as PT. Don't know if I'm winking or I'm blinking, but I'm definitely thinking about the Sopranos, and we finally have more of an answer for the finale. I'll give you my theory and breakdown of the finale, the last episode of the series, and what happened to Tony, but obviously, spoiler warning for all things Sopranos, and The Godfather, because we're going to reference that movie for sure. But what happened to Tony in the series finale is highly debated still, and it's been so many years since The Sopranos ended. But first, guys, before we get to it, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Help us achieve our goal of 100,000 subscribers. If you want to help support the channel, hit the join button to become a valued member of our PT channel family, and make sure you ring the bell to be notified when we post videos every day. Now, like I said, the ending of this series has been highly debated still. What happened to Tony? Is he alive? Is he gone? Well, our theory is that Tony died, and we'll tell you how, when, and by who, and also what David Chase had to say about the finale in a recent interview that kind of gives it away. But per the New York Post, spoiler alert, in the roundtable discussion, co-author Alan Sippenwall asked Chase, "When you said there was an endpoint, you don't mean Tony at Holston's, the diner. You just meant, I think I have 2 more years worth of series left in me." Then Chase, who was 74, dropped the bombshell, "Yes, I think I had that death scene around 2 years before the end, but we didn't do that." So that's interesting that he says death scene, but then he also says we didn't do that. But just like all of us, we were eagerly awaiting the series finale way back when, so many years ago, of one of the best shows ever. I still think The Sopranos is great. And then all of a sudden, we get burnt this. Check the cable, check the power. Did I lose power? Is this it? And the screen's blank for a while, and then the credits go. And previously there was a build-up with New York and Jersey and Tony and everybody, and they won the war and it was great, and Phil Leotardo was gone, and how's it going to end, and what's going to happen with Tony? Well, Tony, Carmela, AJ, and eventually Meadow go to a diner, and Tony picks a song on the jukebox there, "Don't Stop Believin' by Journey." And the shots are very interesting because you see an angle of Tony, and then you see Tony's perspective. A shot of Tony and the table, and then Tony's perspective. And Tony's perspective is this angle right here. And it's very interesting. We're going to talk about this guy in front of AJ in a second, and I believe he's the person that kills Tony. Now, we don't see that, but it makes sense that it is. But again, you see shots of the table, and then you see the first person perspective, like Tony is looking at the front of the diner. Table, front of the diner. Table, front of the diner. And it's annoying because Meadow is parking, still parking, can't parallel park. She pulls into the spot, hits the curb, gotta redo it. And it's like an annoying task of parallel parking that there's so much drama behind it. And it's a simple thing of just parking a car, but is it building up and building up because something bad happens to Tony? I believe so. And it's interesting because Meadow would be sitting next to Tony, but we don't see her enter the diner. She runs towards the diner, and we see the final shot of Tony, and then the screen goes blank, well, black. And that's it. But more on that in a second. Now, continuing on in the article, noticing his epic leak, co-author Matt Solar Seats chimed in, "You realize, of course, you just referred to that as a death scene." "F you guys," replied Chase upon realizing his blunder. Indeed, in one fell swoop, the mob show boss retrospectively spoiled a plot point that's been debated for years by everyone from the Post to the Sopranos stars themselves. So, pretty interesting that David Chase kind of got mad about that. But back to this. So Tony is at the table, Carmela gets there, AJ goes there too. And it's interesting because AJ goes in the diner and he's behind this guy right here. And they highlight this guy several times. If you don't believe me, go on YouTube or HBO Max and go watch the final couple minutes of the episode. And remember when they're in the boat, Bobby and Tony are talking about taking people out, and Bobby didn't have to do it. And I believe it's Bobby who says to Tony, "You probably don't even hear it coming." And Tony makes the joke like, "Yeah, ask your friend in there," talking about the buck that they shot, the deer. So it's interesting because you probably don't hear it coming, and the way the show ends is a blank screen and silence. So I believe Tony was killed by this guy in the members only jacket. And who else was a character that wore a members only jacket? Someone that Tony kind of dicked over, Eugene Pontecorva, right? Pretty interesting. So the members only jacket is definitely a connecting point there. I'm not sure if this gentleman is connected with Eugene or not, but is this guy taking revenge for Eugene or some sort. We're not sure, but the interesting fact that Tony dicked over Eugene in the episode that was titled Members Only. They're both wearing members only jackets. And again, they highlight this gentleman several times. So they did it on purpose. And he's clearly looking at Tony and the Soprano family. Reminds me a lot of The Godfather in the restaurant scene here, right? And they make references to The Godfather during the series several times, but I believe they make a reference to this scene in particular. It's funny because we have 3 people at the table here, and we had 3 people at the table in the Godfather scene. It's pretty interesting. And one of the biggest points here is this camera angle right here. You see the gentleman get up, walk towards the bathroom. You see the open space next to Tony. The 3 people at the table reminds me of The Godfather as well when he gets the gun in the bathroom. So I'm not saying the guy in the members only jacket had a gun waiting in the bathroom, but it's pretty interesting. And I'm not sure if David Chase had this ending in mind because of the Godfather scene here, and it makes you think. So I recommend checking out the Godfather restaurant scene and also the final scene of The Sopranos. Well, I guess final scenes. But I'm going with Tony Soprano was killed in the diner by the guy in the members only jacket right here. Again, you can see the open space. Meadow was supposed to be going to sit right there, but she never made it inside. And it's interesting because if she was there, maybe things take a different turn, that's for sure. But what do you think, guys? Do you agree? Do you think Tony was killed? Does it make sense? I believe so. It's the only thing that makes sense to me because when I was watching it the first time, I was like, what? What happened? Maybe they'll make a movie. Maybe they'll do this. Maybe they'll do that. Well, James Gandolfini died in real life, so that's definitely not going to happen. But we're going to get a prequel movie, The Many Saints of Newark, coming out in 2021. I'm super excited for that movie. Let me know your thoughts. Post your comments below.